One. Hello, everybody. This is Mitchell Miller with BlazerTV.com. I'm the director of the site. You can follow me on Twitter at Mitchell C. Miller, right there on the bottom of the screen. I just had to get that plug in there because the person we have on to cover the game today really has more Twitter followers than me now, and he's definitely relishing in that. Joining me via the telephone is the BlazerTV.com football correspondent Tyler Cantrell, who you can follow on Twitter there. He tweets through all the games. Tyler, how are you doing today?
So I have more Twitter followers than you now?
I think so. I'm not...
I think that's kind of ironic since you introduced me to Twitter.
Yes.
Well,
obviously...
The protege takes over the master. I love it.
Yeah, so we're obviously talking about the game today. You've been covering all the games. Last week you did some coverage of the UCF game. Obviously, that was a big game for UAB. So let's talk a little bit about that game first and foremost before we go into the game today, as hard as it may be. Talk a little bit about that victory and what you saw from the players after that game.
Well, I mean, looking back to a week ago last Thursday night, I don't think there was a lot of people outside that locker room that thought you had a realistic shot to beat the defending conference champs, UCF. The Knights have had an up and down year. They obviously I believe they beat Boston College 30-3. They've had some high marks, but obviously it showed some weaknesses too this year. And UAB just took advantage of those. I thought that the Blazers played an extremely good game. One thing that jumped off the page to me was the young guys who were making plays for UAB in that game. It was sophomore quarterback Jonathan Perry. It was sophomore tight end Nolan Smith, true freshman running back Darren Reeves, sophomore running back Greg Franklin. A lot of young guys making plays on the offensive side of the ball for UAB. Against Central Florida. And it was good to see for the seniors. A lot of those guys, especially on the defense, Jamie Bender, Marvin Burdette, those guys who've been pretty consistent all year. It was almost like a sense of relief to get that win out of the way and just, to not have to go through another post-game press conference or media day after a loss. You could tell those guys were just really excited to come away from that win, and I think it was a little bit sweeter because that was the team that beat UAB the worst last year. If you remember, that was I believe, a 45-7 loss in Orlando last year. So I think a lot of the returning Blazers still had the taste of that game in their mouth.
All right, so obviously a lot of people were surprised by that game. Definitely a full game. I think that was the first time I saw UAB play a full game. You felt the entire time that UAB was definitely putting it out there, and they were playing a full game in every portion of the game, obviously winning with that kick. Now we go into this game. Marshall, there's a lot of talk about having to travel to Marshall and all this, but I do want to bring up the fact that Marshall, we had a longer week to prepare this week, right? Compared to UCF, that was a short week.
Yeah, we had a little bit extra time. Coach Callaway talked about how, obviously this team doesn't have a true bye week. The bye week for UAB was the first week of the season this year, and playing on last Thursday night allowed these guys to have a couple of days off and get fresh and have a little bit more time, if anything, just to recover from some nagging injuries and things to prepare for their trip to Huntington, which was this morning.
All right, let's get right into the game. What are your first impressions? Obviously, we know the score. We know that. Go take us over the game and what you saw in it. Obviously, the score is not very good.
First impressions. This is a game that I felt like UAB was going to go in and compete. I thought that maybe some momentum from this past week, beating UCF, having a couple of extra days, the announcement coming down that Brian Ellis is done for the year. This team could get behind Jonathan Perry. He's the guy for the rest of the year, and obviously Marshall just comes out in this game and they scored a really quick touchdown. They scored a touchdown at the 13:04 mark in the first quarter. Really just drove the football right down the field on the first drive. It reminded me of the first drive against UCF, by UCF, I should say, where the Knights came down and got a really quick touchdown last week, but UAB recovered. They recovered quickly. It's almost like they used that as motivation to wake them up. This week, that did not happen. UAB just did not get anything going in the first half. This was a team that, if it could go wrong, it did in the first half. And by halftime, they were already looking really lifeless going into the locker room. I really was wondering what the coaching staff could say to a team that's down 38-0 at halftime.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a tough situation. I mean this Marshall offense just looked on point, and I don't know if that was something that they were doing or if it was the defense of UAB not getting there. But yeah, exactly, 38-0. What do you do when you go into the halftime? What do you tell these kids? I mean, what do you tell these guys?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I have no idea how you do. You bench Jonathan Perry in the first half and go to Joe Bento. I guess you can understand the thought process of trying to spark the team, but also you're really benching a guy really 2 quarters into naming him the guy for the rest of the year. Bento comes in, he goes 3 of 10 and has 2 turnovers himself. Quarterback position was not the only thing that was the problem for the Blazers today. And this just in, shocking news to anyone who's played Marshall. Vinny Curry is very good. He really disrupted anything that UAB wanted to do offensively today. He had his hand in on almost every big play on the defensive line. I had no idea what UAB was going to look like when they came out in the second half. I was impressed that they came out and were able to drive down the field and get a touchdown to open the second half. They got Perry put together a nice drive. He was back in the game, did some good things. And Nick Adams, senior, got a 6-yard touchdown run. It's good to see a senior who obviously didn't even get to play last year because of an injury like Nick Adams get to score that touchdown. He's worked really hard. So it was good to see him come out and give effort there and get the goose egg off the board. But after that, Marshall, went on to score 21 unanswered points in the second half before UAB tacks on a late touchdown run, for your final score of 59-14. The Blazers did have a little bit of life in the third quarter, which was much more than I could say for the second quarter.
Well, you look at these stats and you see that UAB, although they only had 2 less third downs than Marshall did at 19, they were 2-11 on third down and 0-3 on fourth down. That's not good if you're not converting those. What does it say about the offense right now that they just can't get those conversions?
Well, it's inconsistency. Last week they were able to get it easily. I guess that's part of that is having a young quarterback, starting to turn to some young players. I think one thing UAB fans should be excited about is Darren Reeves. He true freshman running back. Kind of broke out against UCF a little bit last week. He had 11 carries for 55 yards and his first career touchdown today. So he averaged 5 yards a carry. So I think Darren is going to be one of those guys to step up for him in the future. But he even struggled early on. This has got some young guys at the skill positions for UAB. This is the very same guys who were making the plays last week. Didn't make them this week, and that's probably, although UAB fans didn't expect that this year, they expected a senior running back in Pat Shedd, they expected senior quarterback in Brian Ellis. That's probably what you should expect with a younger team.
Now, when you look at the stats of this game and throughout the course of the game, what is one specific stat that really stands out to you as why UAB didn't do that well in this game? Is there any one particular thing you look at and say, well, that's...
Absolutely. I mean, you just look over these stats first, like you said. UAB's only 2 first downs less than Marshall. that's definitely, that's pretty close. UAB wins the turnover battle. Marshall was flagged 8 times for 60 yards. UAB only 4 times for 40.
Penalty battle, not turnover battle. Yeah.
I apologize. Penalty battle. Yeah, I'm jumping the gun a little bit. And UAB also won the time of possession. But at the end of the day, the only stat that mattered was the turnovers, and that was UAB had 5 compared to Marshall's 1. And UAB lost the football every way possible today. I mean, you had interceptions thrown in the end zone. You had tipped balls intercepted. You had a fumbled football that was one of the craziest plays I believe I've ever seen. I think half of Marshall's defense touched that football that kept getting fumbled before Billy Mitchell ended up going in for a touchdown to give Marshall the 52-7 lead. Just the barrage of turnovers for UAB was just more than they could overcome, or to even be competitive, much less overcome to even be in this game.
We've talked all year, not just Blazer TV. Lots of news outlets have talked about how hard this schedule gets for the Blazers. This was step 1 of this huge. Well, actually, UCF was step 1 of this big, huge run of strong teams in conference. Next week's not going to be any easier, even if it is at home.
I mean, Marshall's had extreme inconsistency from the quarterback position. You go back to media day this week for UAB, and the defenders, that's what UAB's defenders were saying, was that the inconsistency for Marshall was at the quarterback position. Well, today, Graham threw 5 touchdown passes, and the backup, Cato, came in and threw another one. So you had 6 touchdown passes thrown on you by Marshall, who you admit are inconsistent. Your reward for that is Case Keenum is coming to Birmingham next Saturday, fresh off a 9-touchdown performance against, Houston's biggest rival in Rice. Keenum's also within shouting distance, a little under 300 yards of being the all-time leader in career passing yards for a NCAA quarterback to add to his growing list of records. I think you look at Case Keenum in Houston coming in at the level they're playing in right now. UAB is really going to have to have some trick plays or just anything possible that they can throw at the Cougars next week to slow down that prolific offense. Because you give up 59 points to Marshall. Marshall scored 38 points in the first half. That was more points than Marshall had scored in a single game this season. They scored that in the first half. So if this is the kind of effort the defense has next week against Houston, it could get even uglier than this.
Well, and we want to. I don't want to put you on the spot. Obviously, you're very close. What are the fans? I'm sure you've seen right after the game on Twitter. You're on Twitter a lot. You see a lot of reaction. What is the fan reaction of a game like this?
Well, it's about what you would expect. I don't think UAB fans expect this. This was a team that a lot of people picked to go to a bowl game. Now they're 1-7. They're officially eliminated from going to a bowl game. This is a team that is in the 5th year of the Neil Callaway era, and I think a lot of fans were expecting more progress to be made at this point, and they're clearly upset with the current situation. I think if you're looking at a fan base, however small or large it may be, I think it would be a worse situation to be okay with this type of result. But clearly UAB fans are very upset about the trip to Huntington, and you may just voice their displeasure this week, and it's going to be sad because it's the homecoming game for the UAB Blazers.
You talk about voice of displeasure. There's no chance of any type of action on the coaching standpoint coming out before that game. You don't think?
I don't know. The one thing I can say about Neil Callaway is I do not think that he will quit. That's not in his vocabulary. He's an old school guy, and I just don't see him walking away from this team. If there was a decision made, it would come from someone other than Neil Callaway. With that being said, with a 59-14 lost today, if there was going to be a decision in season, this week would be a prime candidate for something like that to happen. And if nothing does happen this week, I would say that you will probably not be talking about Neil Callaway's job status until the end of the year.
Right. So let's talk about the players. We know Neil Callaway and the coaching staff is under fire. It's I mean, when you get a season like this or a tenure like this, it seems to happen that way. But what about these players? I mean, this is a team. Before the season, they had a lot of dreams. They had a lot of big goals together. A lot of seniors, a lot of leadership on this team. What the rest of the season? What do they do now that there is no hope for a bowl?
Well, I think one thing that you've got going for you is on the offensive side of the ball. Now, while this UAB team has a lot of senior leaders on the offensive line, a lot of these playmakers for UAB now that are stepping up are younger guys. I expect to see them fully continue to play hard. I think Jonathan Perry and Darren Reeves and Nolan Smith, Jackie Williams, these younger guys continue to try to build on something for the future. I don't think you see quit in those guys. I think they continue to try, despite of the record, to improve their game and get this program to a better place. I think the question will come on defense. If you just look at guys like Jamie Bender, Marvin Burdette, Greg Irvin, TJ Ballou, senior leaders for UAB on defense, this was a defense leading into today that had really improved almost every week. And obviously today they had all kinds of struggles. That's the side of the ball you worry about a little bit. You've got more seniors on that side. Do they just phone it in and realize there's not much left to play for, or do they have enough pride to continue to come out and try to turn this thing around and make it a respectable year, if nothing else? And I expect these guys to try to regroup, but the scary thought is, I mean, going against Houston next week, even with a good effort, the school board may not be very kind to them. They do have a chance to win some more games down the stretch. You've got a trip to Memphis and FAU that are both certainly winnable if this team shows up and plays hard. You've got two really tough games against Southern Miss and Houston, though, that that are top 25 teams. So it'll be interesting to see how the Blazers respond. But I look for the majority of this team to continue playing hard. Especially on the offensive side of the ball, if only because they're young and will still have a future at UAB after this year.
All right. Well, we appreciate it, Tyler. And once again, you can check out all of his coverage on BlazerTV.com. He is the football correspondent, the head football correspondent. He's been in charge of all of the football coverage this year. Tyler, we can expect to see you covering the Houston game next week, I'm sure.
Yeah, planning on being there. Looking forward to being there. But just hope that it's a pretty good turnout for UAB on homecoming.
Yeah, and folks can follow you on Twitter, and you tweet a lot on there. You also do a lot of stuff with the Blazer TV stuff, but also you cover the rest of the conference as well, right?
I try to. I like to watch around the rest of the conference and keep up with the other players and teams, and I think this has been a great year for our conference, having two teams in the top 25 right now. And, because of my coverage of the conference, I was looking forward to seeing Vinny Curry in action today. Maybe didn't want to see him be as great as he had been hyped up to be, but definitely was looking forward to that today. So I enjoy covering the entire conference, not just UAB.
All right, and that's going to wrap it up for today for BlazerTV.com and Tyler Cantrell. I'm Mitchell Miller. Check us out. There's some great coverage. There's some great old stuff. You want to go back and look. We've had stuff all the way back to the first spring practice for UAB. So go ahead and check all that stuff out. And as well, I know Tyler has done stuff with the beat writer for the Blazers from the Birmingham News. Kind of something that we call the Birmingham beat, or the I'm not sure exactly what we call
Blazer
it now.
Beat.
The Blazer beat. Yes. Thank you, Tyler. But that was a very good thing a very good interview that you did with Steve. You plan on doing that again anytime soon?
Actually, talk to Steve, and if everything can work out, we're planning on sitting down maybe tomorrow, or I apologize, Monday after the media luncheon, which is always on Mondays for UAB when players and Neil Callaway are made available to the media. So I'm going to try to sit down with him and talk about just the state of the football program, and maybe get Steve's thoughts on heading into basketball season a little bit more, because that's obviously coming up really quick for the Blazers. Just talk about those things and maybe even get a little bit of stadium talk in, is that decision is coming up quickly for the UAB football program.
Absolutely. I think the proposal for that is next Friday, and of course we got an exhibition game for basketball on Thursday, and then the home game against Houston on Saturday. So a lot of big stuff happening for the Blazers next week. So make sure to keep your eyes and your browsers on blazertv.com. We'll be there to cover as much as we can. So we'll see you next time. All right.